Hey FlossTube, welcome back. This is my 97th FlossTube video, and I'm excited to share with you what I have been working on. But first of all, I want to welcome you. If you are new to my channel, welcome. I hope that you enjoy the things that I have to share with you. If you are returning, thank you for coming back and watching my videos. I really appreciate it. It's been a while since I last posted a video. The last video that I did was just before Christmas, so I have a lot to share with you. Everything is going well. It's been a really nice January. It's been cold, which is kind of nice. I like being cold to balance out the heat in the summer, so it has felt kind of nice to be cold for a while. But things are starting to warm up, and we'll start to see some really nice spring-like temperatures in the next few weeks. So everything's going fine. My kids are all back in school, and we had a really enjoyable Christmas together as a family. And we'll talk a little bit. We might talk about that a little bit more later. Thank you for all of your comments that you've left. There are several questions that I want to answer before we get into showing you all this stuff that I've been working on. So first of all, 87YHN93 asked me, what kind of knitting circular needles am I using? This is in reference to the cardigan that I showed that I had started working on. I just used the KnitPicks interchangeable needles with the chrome needle picks. They work very well. I am very happy with them. It's nice to be able to have interchangeable cables. It's easy to change sizes. All you do is unscrew the tips that are on and screw on the new tips. I have had a little problem with sometimes the tips I don't get the tips on tightened enough, and they will come loose. So I figured out how to make them nice and tight so that doesn't happen generally. The other thing that I've had to deal with is the chrome is really slippery, and it has been really easy for me to slip stitches off my needle and then having to pick them up. It's been kind of a pain that way, but other than that, they've worked really nice. I've kind of wondered if I shouldn't have like a set of their wooden tips, but I'm probably not going to. I'm probably not going to get them. Jackie asked me about the dimensions for a mid-Amish life. She asked me what the dimensions are. She says I understand. She says that she understands that it's a smallish piece, and the dimensions are. This is with all three designs stitched together. I don't know what the dimensions of the individual designs are, but with them all stitched together, the width is 291 stitches and the height is 126 stitches. Now, of course, each individual design, they're all the same height. And the width, the two on the ends are the same width, and the middle design is a little bit wider. If I remember right, the width of the two designs are on the end are about 79 stitches. It's something like that. So you could take 2 times that and subtract from the total width to get what the width of the center one is. It is actually, compared to what I normally stitch, it is on the smaller side. It's just full coverage, so it takes longer to stitch than a sampler would. Yeah. She also asked me, with my winter sampler, that is the design, the Cooler Design Studio sampler that I stitched. It's been like 3 or 4 years since I finished that. She asked me, there's a clock face. She asked me if there were French knots in the clock face, and I went back and looked, and there are no French knots in the clock frame, in the clock face. I didn't remember that there were French knots there, and they're not. So no, there's no French knots there. There are French knots in the piece though, in other places. She asked me if I replaced any French knots with beads. No, I have never replaced a French knot with a bead. I just suck up and do French knots. I'm pretty happy with the way my French knots turn out. There are some that are better than others. So I guess the biggest problem I have with French knots is consistency, but I'm pretty happy with the way they turn out. Angela asked me, is your Spangler autumn piece still permanently on UFO status? Yes, it is. And I don't anticipate that will change. I've decided what I don't like about that piece. I've decided I don't like stitching over one full coverage with one strand of floss. So I still like full coverage, and I've decided that my sweet spot kind of for a full coverage piece is about 200 stitches by 300 stitches that I can stitch with two strands of floss and have it be kind of a reasonable size. And I have a lot of designs that I want to stitch that kind of fit that criteria. So that's probably what I will probably start those as I get room. I don't have any plans to start anything right away, but those are waiting in the wings in the next years or so. So, but yeah, Autumn Magic, it is still pretty unlikely that I will ever pull that out and work on it again. Red's Thread 1 asked me, with regards to my English garden sampler, if I taught myself how to do the cut work. Yes, I just followed the instructions in the chart and did what the chart told me to. I haven't ever had a class on hardanger or cut work. I've just followed the instructions that are in the chart. And she says that it's kind of intimidating. Yeah, it is a little bit, but it's really not that hard. I mean, the hardest part is getting a pair of scissors in to cut the threads that you need to cut. That's really the hardest part. And then it's just pulling the threads out. And it really was a lot easier than, I was a little bit intimidated too, to be honest. But it was a lot easier than I thought it would be. Sally asked me if I use a frame. She says that she prefers stitching in hand, but wonders if a frame would be more practical for a large design, a large full coverage design. And yes, I do use a frame. I use an Omanique quantum frame. I love it. It gives me really good tension. When I first started stitching on linen, the shop owner where I bought my first piece of linen told me that with linen you stitch in hand. And so I stitched in hand for years. And it got to the point where a lot of times it was just too bulky. When you're stitching something as big as this, you have all this fabric that you have to deal with. And I also decided that, just based on experience, that I could get more consistent stitch tension on when my piece is in a frame as opposed to stitching in hand. I could never really get make the stitches as nice as I like to when I stitch in hand. So that's why I don't stitch in hand. I also think, and your mileage may vary, but I think that when you stitch in hand, you are putting more stress on the floss because you're dragging the floss through, your floss is being dragged across the back of the fabric, across two threads of fabric, whereas I stitch two-handed and I stab, and I think that you're not running the floss across the fabric quite as much that way. So that is another reason why I stitch on a frame and not in hand. And I'm much more happy with the results I get when I stitch in a frame Doug asked me, he mentioned that the size of my fabric on some of my pieces is really large as compared to the stitch design. And Doug, yeah, you've caught me. Because I don't like stitching small things, I don't see a lot of value in having a lot of small fabric pieces. So I haven't ever worried about cutting my fabric down unless I'm going to have a piece that's big enough that I can use for one of the designs that I normally stitch. I do give myself a wider margin on the top and the bottom generally because that makes it easier to keep tension in my frame. If the margin is too narrow, then there's always the possibility that the fabric is going to pop out of my frame, and I've had that happen before. It actually happened this week. How wide is my, and then he asked me, how wide is my scroll frame? My scroll frame, I have 2 sets of scroll bars. One set that's about 28 inches wide, and the other set is about 36 inches wide. So I can stitch 36 inch wide. I can stitch with a 36 inch wide piece of fabric. Omanique sells an even wider set of scroll bars that I don't have, and I don't ever think that I'll ever need to. I don't think that there's anything that wide that I would ever stitch. Lorraine asked me on my English cottage, am I using DMC? Yes, I'm using DMC for my English cottage. So that's all the questions. Thank you so much for all of your questions and all of your comments. Okay, so before we get into the cross stitch, I'm going to share a little bit of knitting with you because, as I mentioned before, my last video, I showed you that I had started knitting a cardigan, and I had knit part of a sleeve and had started working on the body. And actually, right after Christmas, we went out of town to visit family, and I didn't want to take a great big huge cross stitch project. So I took a couple of small projects, and then I just wasn't even in the mood to start them. So I knit. I knit for a week. I took a week off of cross stitch and I knit for a week. And then I've been knitting a little bit every evening just to get this done. I am in a race to finish this cardigan before it gets hot, because when it gets hot, it's gonna be too hot to work on it. So last night I actually hit a big milestone, and that's that I finished the body of the cardigan. So I don't know how this is going to show up. So this is what it looks like now. The way this is done, this is knit basically all in one piece. You knit 2 sleeves and the body, and when you get up to here, you join the sleeves to the body and continue knitting. It's a raglan yoke, so you can see that I have been decreasing up to the neck, and I reached the neck last night. And there's a little bit of neck shaping here, and then I bound off the neck. So the majority of this is finished. I'll turn it around so you can kind of see the pattern. It's a slip stitch rib, basically, which means that every other row you're slipping stitches, and that pulls the knit stitch out. It makes it a little bit more pronounced with there's like a garter stitch in the background. And the sleeve decreases are the background is pearl. No, actually the background is knit. The background is knit. So this is if you knit a sock, this is the kind of pattern that you use to when you knit the heel pattern of a sock. Knit the heel flap of a sock. So that's kind of interesting. And this has been huge. This has taken me longer than it should have, because every time I tried to do something, I made a mistake and I'd have to undo a bunch of stitches. So almost everything I've had to do twice. For example, I joined my sleeves and got about six rows in after joining my sleeves, and realized that I hadn't completed the last round of one of my sleeves correctly. I lost track of what I was doing, and what it did is it put the sleeve increases, which run down along the inside of the sleeve, it put them on the outside. And if I'd done that with both sleeves, I might have just said, oh, that's just a design feature, and kept on. But I had one sleeve that had the decreases on the outside, and the other sleeve had them on the inside, and I didn't think that would look very well. So I had to pull out 6 rows and join the sleeves in again after I fixed that. And then I had problems when I started actually doing the yoke decreases. I had to do that a couple of times. Yeah, so all that is left to do is I need to knit the collar. So I need to pick up stitches around the neck and knit ribbing for the collar. And then I need to also knit the button bands. And I guess I've got to find some buttons. I don't know what I'm going to use for buttons for this. But so I'm really close to actually calling this finished. And I'm really happy. I've kind of concentrated on finishing it because like I say, I've kind of been in a race before it starts to get warm, because when you're knitting something that's this big and floppy, it's just too hot. I mean, having all this wool on my lap while I'm trying to knit, that would not be fun in the summertime. So I've been on a race to finish this before it got warm, and I think I'm actually made it. Oh, the other thing I need to do is I'm going to have to graph the underarms together. So have to graft them together so that I don't have the hole in the underarms. So you can see that they're on waste yarn right now. So I'll just have to put them on needles and graft them. So anyway, yeah. So hopefully this will be finished soon. I'm really quite happy with it. I finished it last night, and I've been kind of worried about this because it just seemed so big, and that I was worried. I was worried that it wasn't going to fit, that it was going to be too big, or I didn't know what it was going to do, especially because the sleeve decreases were like just huge. So I tried it on last night, and it does fit. The sleeves are a little bit longer than I would prefer, but I followed the directions. I knit the length that the directions said. So it's fine. I mean, it's okay. It's not like I won't wear it, but. So yeah, so it looks like it's going to fit. I'll be glad to get everything done so that it's more stable, and maybe it'll look like it fits a little bit better when it's actually all finished. I have also, I don't know what's going on, but my knitting bug has come back a little bit. I still like stitching better, but I started a new sock. I haven't knit a sock in a long time, and I had to remember how to do it. And I've had a couple false starts with this for a couple times, but this is a sock that I've just started. I don't know what this yarn is. I know it's KnitPicks. I think, if I remember right, they used to sell a line of sock yarn that was merino, and I think that's from that line. I don't think it's superwash. I don't think there's any nylon in it. I think it's just merino sport weight. And if the color was something like redwood, it's some reds and browns and greens. It's nice fall color. And I finished the toe, and now I'm starting to work on the foot. These needles are KnitPicks Caspian double points, they are size 1. And when I get halfway up the calf, then I'll switch over to, I have a set of KnitPicks wood double points that are a size bigger to switch over when I start going up the calf. For knitting socks, I use this book. This is a book called Simple Socks, Plain and Fancy. This is a book by Priscilla Gibson Roberts. I really like the way she does her socks. She explains how to do a short row heel, which is, I really like the way a short row heel looks. It looks almost like a store-bought sock. And she actually uses the heel. I'm knitting toe up, as you see. And to knit a toe, you do a provisional cast on and knit a heel. And then you pick up the stitches from the other side of the provisional cast on and start knitting circularly. And that's how you get the toe. I really like that technique. It makes everything look seamless. If you can see here, it's on this side. That's the side that had the provisional cast on. If you look closely, I noticed this after I did a couple of rounds. I picked up a couple of places. I picked up the stitch below the stitch that was on my waist yarn. So, but it's okay. But it looks pretty seamless. I had a false start because there is a typo in her instructions on how to do the toe. She's missed a step, and she copied that. They're an exact copy of what to do for the heel. So if you follow the heel instructions when you, after you finish doing the short rows and you start increasing back out, look at what's in the heel instructions instead of the toe instructions. I learned that the hard way because I had stuff that wasn't making sense. So this is really good. She has a basic sock pattern, and then she has different things you can do to add interest, like different color heel and toe, or like stripes, or striped heels and toes, or stripes, vertical stripes. Color work. She has a lot of cool suggestions in here, like putting cables up the sides and down. So this is a really good book if you want to learn how to knit socks. I really like this book. She has another book that I really like. It's called Knitting in the Old Way. And when I look at sweater construction, I'm really interested in the old style sweaters. Like someday I want to knit a Gansey with 5-ply Gansey yarn. And there's instructions on how to do Ganseys, errands, Norwegian sweaters, all sorts of different yokes. It's all based on the percentage system. There's not explicit directions. There's just basically a whole bunch of ideas. You would have to do the math. You have to do the math, and you have to do all the details. But there's lots of cool suggestions for sweaters. There are 2 or 3 different types of sweaters in here that I would love to knit. I said I want to knit a Gansey, and I've actually been looking at something, and I think I know what I want to knit. It won't be this year because it's going to get too hot to knit. But I think I'm either going to do this. This is Michael Pearson's Traditional Knitting. This is another great book. This is like he went all over the coastal towns in England and interviewed people and learned their techniques. And it's really interesting just reading the history behind knitting in different regions and stuff. There is a pattern in here, Flamborough, from Flamborough, which I really like. It's basically diamonds and cables. I think I would like to do that. Or the other possibility I've been looking at is in this book, which is Fisherman's Sweaters by Alice Starmore. And it's the first one, this Stornoway, which I really like that one also. So, like I say, it's not going to be soon, but sometime. Okay, so that is all of the knitting. Probably too much, but like I say, I'm not going to go crazy with knitting because stitching is still my first love. Okay, one other thing, I got Christmas presents. I mentioned to my wife that I like these patterns, and I was kind of sad because they were out of print for a while and now they are back. And she kind of put a bug in my kid's ear, and she actually bought a couple for me also. So I have a set of 3 patterns. These are by AuryTM. They're Quakers that are with a Christmas theme. So this one is Joy. And then there's 2 others. So this is Joy, which is the Joseph and Mary and baby Jesus. Peace with the shepherds. And Faith with the wise men. I think these would be really awesome. You kind of have a Quaker nativity. And so I am definitely going to stitch these. These will probably be the next Christmas patterns that I start. And I think I'm going to start with Joy just because that's the kind of the center one. So yeah, so that was great. It was a great surprise to get these for Christmas. Okay, this is going to be a long video. I've got since it's been so long, I have 5 pieces. I've worked on 5 pieces since the last time that I showed a video. So I've got 5 things to show you. Before we do that, I'll just show you my whip status. I really like this chart, and I really like seeing how it has changed. It's been really nice to look at this. It gives me a feel for where I am, and I can actually see progress as I work on something, and I can see the number of days that are left to stitch go down and the percentage go up. So I'll switch back and forth between the previous time you saw it and now, just so that you can kind of see how it's changed. I know that I've made significant progress on some pieces, and I also know that I have actually come in, like for example, there are a couple of pieces that I've worked on for a week, but I've had more than 7 days come off the prediction. So that means that I'm actually speeding up on a couple of pieces. Okay, so the first thing that I started, and this was right after the first week of January, I started this. This is Queen Anne's Lace by Lavender and Lace, Marilyn, Leavitt, Imblum. This is the first piece I worked on, and I'll show you what it looked like the last time you saw it. And as you know, this is one of those pieces that is almost full coverage, and I am like right in the thick of the long diagonals. I'm stitching it with the called for DMC. on 32 count Belfast linen, 32 count Dirty Belfast linen, which is the called for linen as well. And this has been, of course, this is really fun to work with. I must admit that all of this yellow really gets me down a little bit. I have a hard time stitching with yellow, and there is a ton of yellow. It's like going through a sea of yellow to get down to the blue. But I basically stitched a couple of diagonals, and there's a milestone here. If you follow this diagonal down, that's the corner of the chart. So now I'm going to start working upwards. I've hit my second corner, which means my diagonals aren't going to get any longer. And so now I'm just working up to the third corner up here, when the diagonals will start to get shorter. But yeah, I'm really happy with this. I am getting really close to a little bit of change in here. If I remember right, looking at the chart, I'm getting close to, she is holding some roses in her hand, and I am getting close to starting to see those roses. So that'll be nice. Instead of having all this yellow, we'll start to see a little bit of pink and green, like this over here. You're starting to see more of her arm right here. I think it's going to take a long time for this arm to appear because it's running perpendicular to my diagonals, basically. But yeah, so I'm really happy with how this is going. This is my third oldest whip, and I've got about 2 months left to stitch on it, according to my spreadsheet. Okay, so after I did Queen Anne's lace, I pulled out this. This is my Dragon Quaker by Stickideen von der Wiehenburg. I really love this piece. I love the colors, and this has been a real joy to stitch. So I am stitching this on 32 count Dirty Belfast linen again, and I decided I needed. If you've been following me, you know that I went through kind of a process to get to this linen, and I really like how this turned out. The warmth of the linen really sets off the colors of the stitches. And I'm using the called for DMC. I am stitching 2/2. I'll show you a picture of what it looked like the last time you saw it. So I've been working across the top to get the top row of pages done. And as you can see, I hit this corner over here. So for all intents and purposes, the top row of pages is done. I haven't counted any page finishes yet because there are like little pieces of motifs all through here that are actually on the next page. So as I come back through and catch those, then I'll count that as page finishes. But pretty much all of the motifs in those top pages, all of the complete motifs are stitched. And I think I stitched with all of the colors now too. So you can see all the colors that I've stitched with. And this color, I don't know how well it's showing up on camera. In real life, it shows up pretty well. This is the one color that I've had a hard time with against the background. But this looks better than the previous fabric that I was on. It actually looks nice and lavender here. It just doesn't show up really well until you actually look at it. But yeah, I don't know what it is about Quakers. I really love stitching Quakers. I think it's probably the symmetry of them. The symmetry just fascinates me. So I'm excited to get working to start this next row of pages, especially because I'm going to be stitching a lot of dragons. There'll be 2 dragons on each side, and then the big central dragon in the middle. I'll be interested to see how long it takes me to stitch that dragon. I don't know if it's so huge, it takes up an entire page. I don't know if I'll be able to stitch an entire page in one week. I guess we'll see. But we'll find out a little bit later. So this is Dragon Quaker by Stickideen von der Wiehenburg. Okay, so if you remember, towards the end of last year, I decided that I was going to have a focus piece. And I decided that my focus piece was going to be Winter Quakers, just so I could get a finish before the end of the year. And of course, I finished Winter Quakers last year. And I really like this idea of doing a focus piece, just because I think it'll allow me to get finishes in with the large number of whips that I have right now. I have 9 whips. I've worked on half of them since the beginning of the year, so I still have 4 to actually get to this year. But if I just stitch on them and rotate through everything, I'm not going to have a finish for a very long time. And I like having finishes. I like the sense of accomplishment that I have with getting a finish. So I have decided that I'm going to have work on a focus piece and then work through my rotation, kind of like I did at the end of last year. That has really worked. So I decided I had to decide what I was going to use for a focus piece, and I decided that my focus piece was going to be this. This is A Saviour's Praise by Shakespeare's Peddler. The reason why I chose this one is I think this is most likely my next piece that is closest to being a finish. So this is what I've been working on. This is the next piece that I worked on, my focus piece. Of course, I've been working on this for a long time, and I'll show you what it looked like the last time you saw it. I'm stitching this on 40 count Beach Brew by R&R, and I'm stitching with anchor, the called for anchor, and a little bit of Weeks Dye Works floss. I'm stitching 1 strand over 2. And this is what it looks like now. So I finished basically this little section of the border, and also I stitched all of the words to Now Think We All Are God. So I spent most of the time stitching words. That kind of got to me. I was glad to stop stitching words when this is all finished. But yeah, so I really like how it turned out. I've mentioned before that I am changing some of the words so that I have words that match the list to Doctrine and Covenants section 4. And this was a word that I changed. It said honesty, and I changed it to charity. This morning I was thinking about this piece, and I thought, what I should have done, I don't think I'm going to change it because this would require taking all this out. I thought I should have charted the first verse or so of Doctrine and Covenants section 4. Now behold, a wondrous work is about to come forth among the children of men. Therefore, all ye that embark in the service of God, see that ye serve him with all your heart, might, mind, and strength. I think that would have been really cool right here, and it would have tied in all of my words. I don't know how much I would have been able to fit. Maybe I wouldn't have been able to fit everything, but I really think that would have been a good idea. And then I thought I could have put something down here too. One thing that came to mind is the Joseph Smith quote that says, "No unhallowed hand shall," I don't know that one as well, but to the effect that no unhallowed hand will stop the work of God. I think that would have fit really nice down there. And then I said, but then Emma Seabrook, Crowsborough, in 1830, well, 1838 might have been okay, but I thought, yeah, I think that makes this a little bit anachronistic. Then I thought, I'd just make that like Nauvoo, Illinois. And I thought, that would have been really cool. I don't think it's cool enough that I'm going to take all the words out and redo everything. But I kind of thought that would have been a good idea if I had thought about it 2 years ago when I started this piece. Anyway, I'm really happy with how this is turning out. And I'm excited to work on it again. I am going to be working on this week, and I'm planning on starting here and working up to the corner. We'll see how far I get. If I can get this done, maybe I'll start doing the alphabet that comes across here. The alphabet is stitched in blocks of 4 cross stitch. You could do eyelets if you want. I don't know that I want to do eyelets, but I'm considering doing rice stitch, the alphabet in rice stitch, just for a little texture variation. But yeah, so I'm really happy with this, and I'm excited to get working on it. I like I say, this is going to be my focus piece. I'm hoping that I will be able to finish this soon. Maybe in about 3 weeks. That's what my chart is telling me. What my spreadsheet is telling me. Okay. Next, I worked on the Red House Sampler. This is a design by Brenda Keys of the Sampler Company. This is a design that I started last January. That was my New Year, New Start. That was the first time I ever did that. And we are doing a stitch along. If you are participating in the stitch along or want to, all you need to do is post to BTL Red House Sampler on Instagram, and I will see your. I'll see your progress. And I've really enjoyed watching people's progress. There are people who have finished it since they started it. I'm slow, but there it is. That's what I've been working on. I'll show you what it looked like the last time you saw it. And I have been stitching this on 36 count Parchment from Weeks Dye Works. And this has been another piece that has been fun. It has been going really quickly. I don't know if that's going to change when I actually start stitching the house, because that'll be the most dense part of this piece. But this is what it looks like now. Let me shift this over just a tad. So this is what it looks like now. So I finished the leaves on this flower and all of these trees here and the garland that goes across the top. And then I started working on this flower. I had a couple of days the week that I was working on it that I couldn't stitch. So I didn't get quite as much done as I would have liked to. I was hoping to get over to here and stitch the border down. But I'm happy with what I was able to do. So all I've got to do is I've got to do this. Basically, there's leaves and the center stalk for this flower. and then I've just got to bring these flowers down. And then I'm going to start working on this great big huge row of stuff down here with the house goes right here. But yeah, no, I'm really happy. I really love these trees and this garland that goes across here. I really like how that turned out. Okay, so that is the red house sampler. And then this last week, this is what I just barely finished working on, is Sunshine and Shadows. This is a design by Barbara and Cheryl. It's a cross-stitch adaptation of a painting, probably in South Carolina. I think that's where all of their pictures come from. And I'm really been intrigued by this, especially by the way the light filters down through the tree onto the yard. I really like the look of this. Of course, I've stitched two others of their designs. I really like their designs. So this is the third and final one of their designs that I will probably stitch. I don't have any more of them. I'm stitching this on 32 count Ivory Lugana, I believe. And I am stitching it with the called for DMC 2 strands over 2 fabric threads. I'll show you a picture of what it looked like the last time you saw it. It doesn't look like anything really yet. I mean, I'm starting to see some stuff, but it doesn't really look like anything. My wife says it's all brown. Anyway, this is what it looks like now. So this is, if you can see, this is the house. So basically this is a picture of a yard on the side of the house. This is the house. And right now, because you don't see the perspective, this is the picket fence that runs across the back of the picture. So I'm actually starting to see the picket fence. And then, of course, you've got this brick walkway down here. This is kind of a transition row because I'm starting to see the back of the picket fence, and these plants right here are almost finished. And so we're going to see more of the walkway come up through here. And then actually, this is almost to the edge of the brick walkway. So I'm going to start to see different colors down here because I'm going to start to see the yard that's over here underneath the tree. So I think the next time that I pull this out and work on it, there's going to be a major change in the way it looks. The picket fence will start looking more like a picket fence, and there'll be less, and we'll be able to see the edge of the walkway. So, and it really felt good to be working full coverage this time. Felt really good. I enjoy working on samplers, but I also enjoy working full coverage. So that's Sunshine and Shadows by Graphs by Barbara and Cheryl. So that's all the pieces that I have been stitching. I've had a really great month working on these pieces, and I'm looking forward to stitching on the other pieces. English Cottage Sampler is coming up. I'm excited for that. And then I'm going to start working back through when I do English Cottage Sampler. After I finish that, then I'll have gone through my entire rotation and I'll be ready to start back up at the beginning again. Of course, as I mentioned, just to emphasize, I am going to be working on on a Saviour's Praise this week. And then next week is English Cottage Sampler, so that's exciting. We'll see how much of this I can get done. Like I say, this is the piece that I am hoping to be my next finish. And then that's basically the way I'm going to work. I'm going to have a focus piece that I work on every other week, or maybe every third week. I haven't. I've kind of been debating in my mind about whether or not I can handle doing every other week. I'd like to do every other week because that would get me closer to a finish, and I think that would also make it possible to get some finishes in and drop my whip count. But we'll see. I mentioned in my last video that I was thinking about doing the Modern Folk Embroidery 2021 stitch along. I have everything I need to start it. I just couldn't bring myself to start it. I've got enough going on my plate right now. So when I get a chance, I will start that, I think. But it's not right now. I'm more interested in getting my whip count than starting things. So we'll see how things go. That may change, but that's kind of the way things are right now. So that's all that I have to share with you. As always, you can follow me on Instagram to see my daily progress, to see what I actually stitch. I am at blitstitch on Instagram. As always, if you haven't, please subscribe to my channel. That way you can get more notifications about when I post a video. And I always enjoy hearing from you, and we'll be glad to answer any questions or comments that you have. Feel free to like this video. That is a great help to me also. As always, I hope that you have a great week, and we will talk to you later. Goodbye.